Welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Kofi Animedu. In a world dominated by algorithms, automation, and artificial intelligence, it's easy to lose sight of what truly drives engagement and human connection. Today's guest, Robin Nathaniel, has spent years at the intersection of social media, strategy, and human behavior. As a seasoned social media professional and author of the book Social Media Sync, Robin has seen how entrepreneurs in the race for digital skill often overlook the most powerful asset they have, their ability to connect, listen, and lead with intention. In this conversation, we'll explore why human connection matters more than ever, even in this AI era, and how to build deeper relationships both online and offline. Get ready for reset back insights, actionable frameworks, and personal stories that will make you rethink how you show up for the people who matter most. Let's get started. Welcome to my show, Robin.
Thank you so much for having me, Coffee. Excited for this conversation.
All right, so let's start with the big picture. Why do you believe human connection is more important in the AI era?
Great question. I love starting with that. So, what we're seeing in this space with the ascension of artificial intelligence is that communication online, we're getting more output than we've ever seen. More content is coming out. The volume is turning up. And essentially, it's noisier than it's ever been. I believe that this is a time in our journey online where our human voice and our human connection will increase the ability to connect with people on an intentional level, but also on an authentic level, and make lasting relationships, whether that's business partnerships, getting new clients, but most importantly, impacting the people you serve.
That's very deep. Now let's get to know you some more. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? I'm sure my audience would like to know you some more.
Yep, Robin Nathaniel. I am a big NBA fan, big time NBA fan. Also a two-time dad, which is one of the things that I enjoy the most in life is being a dad and being present in this moment for them. I have a 15-year-old and a 7-year-old, a lovely wife. By day, I am a social media professional leading a team of social media specialists in the local government sector. But by night, I run my own boutique social media solutions company where we serve mission-driven and nonprofit organizations with their social media needs. I'm also a TEDx speaker. I had the ability to speak on the TEDx stage in 2024, and since then I've become an author, and I published recently my first book, Social Media Sync.
All right. So we'll talk about your book as well as also try and unpack a lot of things you've just said. So you've been in social media for years. What are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in how entrepreneurs engage with their audiences?
Yep. So, like you said, I've been in the game for years. I don't know if you know the Notorious B.I.G. He had a line that said, "I've been in this game for years. It made me your animal." There's rules, So, I've been in this game since MySpace, right? And MySpace, for folks who don't know, is one of the earliest social media platforms in the early 2000s. So, at the time, I didn't know that I was carving a career in social media. I was just there with everyone else in the Wild Wild West. And back then, what I did was I helped musicians to land gigs and jobs by networking online. So since then, we've seen a lot of shifts. Most recently, I believe one of the largest shifts in the way entrepreneurs are connecting with folks online is the really growth of video content. So video content has always been very popular and important in media in general, but on social media, there were a lot of alternatives to it. On Twitter, or now X, it was written format, short written format. On Instagram, when it first came out, it was really about photography and pictures. Now, each and every platform has some element of video. So I think that has been the greatest shift that I've seen in the last few years.
So, can you share any studies or data that support your belief that intentional human connection still drives the most impactful results, even in our tech-driven world?
Yep. There's tons of data out there. One piece of data that I pulled recently is that 5.3 billion people are on social media, right? So to give you a little bit of context, that's 64.7% of the world's population. And that's just not people online, that's active users. So I think, especially when we talk about entrepreneurs who have a mission that serves and helps people. Most of the entrepreneurs that I know are not just selling something to make money. They also have a passion for what they're doing, or they have an audience that they're really focused on serving. So what I would say is that this number should be a clear indication that whatever your mission is, that you have essentially unlimited reach to impact people. So I would challenge people to go beyond their normal area of business. If you're a brick and mortar coffee shop in San Antonio, maybe think about ways that you can leverage an international audience to expand your reach and essentially grow your business.
That's very true. That's very true. You in your submission, your introductory submission, you talked about your book, Social Media Sync, right? Let's start by talking about the book. Let's spend some time talking about the book and unpacking a lot of things in the book. First of all, let's start with the name. Why the name Social Media Sync?
Yep. So when I gave my TEDx talk in June 2024, I got off the stage and I knew that I wanted to write a book. In my talk, there's a framework that I use called the sync method. And it was really connected to in-person connections. However, as I was writing my book and I didn't have a title, I realized that many of the frameworks and ideas that I was putting on this brainstorming sheet, really because it was a big mess of information, that a lot of it was aligned with that framework. So what I started to do is shift from just writing my book to having a clear path to connecting that framework to the book. And when it came to making the title, it just made sense to kind of stick to the brand of Social Media Sync as opposed to another title.
Let's move on. Introduce us to the book. You talked about you offering a framework. Introduce us to that book. What does this really stand for?
So I'll start by saying that many of the ideas and frameworks that I have are in contradiction to what many of the social media gurus in the space might say, do, and teach. I'll start there. So many of my concepts, philosophies around social have to do with humanity. Even though they seem like they're opposing ideas like social media, humanity, like they don't mix, right? When in fact, I believe if social media is leveraged the right way, it can in fact enhance human connection. With that said, the framework, the sync method, is very basic and easy to understand. I'll give you a quick and dirty breakdown.
Sure.
S is for simple. Online, we find so often that people come into digital spaces and they want to be the smartest person in the room, right? Like the mythological dexterity of the conversion of the complementary, photosynthesis. And they're like, what? What did he say? Did he say he wanted me to buy something? I'm confused, right? So what I challenge people to do in the book and in my work is to simplify your message. You don't need to use the $2,000 word for people to understand. And in fact, one of the greatest compliments that I've ever received was during a podcast interview with a lady named Chris Bradley. She's a music coach. She coaches musicians on how to make money. And she said, Robin, when you teach, you just make it so easy to understand and simple. And that warmed my heart because for a long time, Coffee, I feel like simplicity got a bad rap. Simplicity got a negative connotation. Simplicity was bad. And I'm like, that's the furthest thing from the truth. Making something simple and easy to understand will make your listener or the person or your student or whoever you're trying to teach, make them receive the message. It will help them to receive the message. So S is for simple. I is for yield to your intentions. Really what yielding to your intentions is about before you jump in and start writing a piece of content, making a video, shooting a podcast, very similar to what you did when we started. Before we started, we chopped it up, we connected. You set intentions of what you expected. You let me know that maybe we might go off track if something comes up that we want to dive into, but you gave me your intentions. And that's something that when people are online, they don't do. They treat social media like they're checking off a box on a list. And that's where the problems come up. It's like we're just creating because people said we have to, as opposed to thinking about your intentions. Are your intentions to serve people? Are your intentions to teach people? Is it your intention to leave people better off than they were before they consume your content? So that's why. N is for natural. Far too often I see people come into the digital space with their corporate hat on. Like, we got to get those reports in, but like 25% of like, how about just hi? How about like, let's just get to know each other? Especially in the AI era. I'm sure you've seen this in your LinkedIn. You get a message from someone, hey, Coffee, I saw your episode on October 20th, 2024 about this topic with this guest. I love that. Can we jump on a 15-minute call so I can tell you about my business? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, slow down. Let's just talk the way we would talk. Hey, Coffee, saw your episode. It was really cool. If you ever need anything, let me know. Simple, basic, but most importantly, natural. And the last step, change it up. C is for change it up. What we want to do is make sure that we're not on a hamster wheel for social media. I talked about checking boxes earlier. Far too often I see leaders or social media people create their calendars for 6 months and a year, and they schedule it out and then they leave it alone. Social media is a fluid space. It's a place for conversations, and most importantly, it's a place to be social. So I would encourage people to change it up, try different mediums. If you always write, maybe try a few videos. If you only do videos, maybe write some short form caption content like X or Twitter, and that way you can diversify the different styles of content and hopefully reach more people.
My guest once again is Robin Nathaniel, who is the author of Social Media Sync. And he's told us that the S stands for simple, the Y stands for yield to your intentions, the N stands for natural, and the C, change it up. Change it up. Social Media Sync. All right. So Robin, you talk about moving from broadcasting to relating. But how can brands, especially personal brands, shift their communication styles to build trust and also loyalty?
Well, we talk about broadcasting, right? And it's really a one-way conversation when we're broadcasting. It's like, here's my thing. Let me put it in front of you. Hopefully, you'll take some action. I got another thing. Repeat the process, and it's this cycle. When in fact, I find the brands that really do it well make it an active two-way conversation where it's not me just broadcasting the thing that I want you to see, but it's me asking you how I can serve you. It's me asking you, what are your pain points? What are you struggling with? It's me learning more about you as an audience, so that way I could serve you the right content or the right resources. So that's the biggest thing. Go from a one-way street to make it a two-way street.
That's deep. That's deep. So you've been on this journey for quite some time. Tell us about a time in your own career where a real human connection, one conversation, one act of intentionality led to a major breakthrough.
Yep. It's one that I talk about in the book. I describe it. I'll give you a summary of it. So one summer, I went to a festival where we have all of these tables and vendors. They're selling stuff. And I don't know if you've ever been to one of these coffee, but sometimes when you go to the table, you don't like look directly at the person. You kind of look at their stuff and you go like this and you just move to the next table, right? There's a lot of people there. You know, people are trying to sell you stuff. And I saw a table off to the side. It had a man there with his children, and he had a tablecloth that read some letters that I was very familiar with. The letters read TEDx. So I said, well, I'd like to be a TEDx speaker one day. Let me go over there. So I went over to the table, poked around, didn't look him in the eye. He looked like he had been there for a while. He was kind of leaning back like, here's finally a person came. And then something in him shifted. I could see him go from like, I'm here with my daughters in this heat, just waiting for the day to end to like, let me serve this person. So as he stood up and I felt his energy shift, so did mine. So I gave him eye contact. We talked a little bit. I signed his email list and then I walked away. I didn't think anything of it. As I was walking away, I heard the man's voice. He said, "Hey, come back here." I turned around. I went back to him. I said, "What's up?" He said, "Hey, man, I want to give you something." And he gave me his book. His name was Daryl Stinson. That brief interaction likely, and I give him a lot of respect, love, and credit, likely led to this conversation, Coffee. I don't believe that I would have graced the TEDx stage at that time, obviously, in my life. I don't know if I would have written a book in this season of my life, and I don't believe I would be on this podcast tour promoting and talking about my book and my philosophies around social media had I not met that man. So I could have easily flipped around and walked away. I could have easily said, "No, I'm good. Have a good one. He's trying to sell me something." But because I was open and intentional with matching his positive energy, that it led to one of the richest relationships that I have in my personal life.
All right. So let's move to the flip side. So have you ever fallen into that trap of digital automation at the expense of real human connection and real relationships?
Yep. So I'll start by always raising my hand and saying, I am imperfect. I am flawed. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm a work in progress. I try to get better every day, but even today I've had shortcomings, right? I feel like in a digital space, we always show up with our highlight reels. It's like the best of the best. What happened at the beach today? Like, look how many sales I made last month. We made this amount of money. But nobody's talking about like, man, like I just got my heart broken because a client that I've had for 5 years ended our contract and I was forecasting to do this amount. I lost a friend. Whatever the pain is, my dog ran away. Whatever it is, people don't really broadcast that as much as we see the highlights. So I'll start with that.
So you talked about the earlier bit about you meeting the gentleman you mentioned, and I'm also asking that you also have the possibility of falling in that trap where our focus really is on just the digital automation at the expense of having a personal one-on-one relationship with each other.
Yeah, that's what it was. Great. So again, I'm flawed. When automation first became popular, specifically on Instagram, and it's still getting very popular. ManyChat, which is one of the most popular, automation, instant message automation software out there, where you can essentially just create an entire army of, digital personas to kind of bring people into your universe and your sales funnels. So this is something that I was using, and I was using it frequently. And I saw some mild results, positive, but what I did get was a message from someone who knew me already, someone that I did business with already. And they said something very similar to this. I'm paraphrasing here, but they sent me a message and they were like, "Is this you? Because this doesn't sound like you." As simple as that message was, it made me take a step back because I'm in the space, so I've utilized most of the tools, and where I was back then when I had this conversation is very different than where I am now. But looking back, it was definitely one of the moments that I knew that there was another side to automation. So again, I leverage automation daily now. I don't do much public-facing automation because, especially when it comes to DM interactions, I believe that is creating a lot of noise and clutter for people because they can see through, the automation and they know if it's authentic or not. I had another example recently. This was probably in 2023 when I was leveraging a tool, and it was it was requesting people to be like a connection or a friend. And there was an automated message sequence. And somebody, again, that I work with, he was actually a mastermind leader. I was attending a mastermind for speakers. And the leader of that was like, "Is this AI?" And I was like, "Yo, yeah, I'm testing something." And he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "It's really noticeable." So since then, I've leaned into automation in spaces that that are not front facing. Like, I don't want my audience to feel that like I'm using a computer to talk to them. I would prefer to connect with them authentically, especially in the DMs.
All right. So you've been on this journey for quite some time, and like any other journey, there are ups, there are downs, and a lot of lessons we all pick up. Let's start off with the highs. What indeed are some of the highs you would want to share with us, and then we'll move on to the lows and also lessons you've picked up on this journey. So let's start with the highs. What are some of the highs you'd like to share with us?
The first one that comes to mind is just after I finished my TEDx talk, being on stage to take pictures with my family, with my 15-year-old son, with my 7-year-old daughter. At the time, she might have been 5 or 6, and he might have been 13 or 14. And my wife, and them seeing me accomplish something that I had been working on because they had watched me work and work. And for them to see the process come to fruition, especially my son who was actually there watching it, that meant a lot to me. Another thing was the completion of my book. Again, my children seeing me work late nights on it and know that daddy was working on a book, and my wife actually giving me the inspiration to write the book and her support to see it come to fruition, that was also a highlight. And, you know, a lot of my highlights have to do with my family because that's kind of at the core of everything. But I was recently awarded a Gold Telly Award this year, which I'm really proud of. That's something that I'm really happy about as an achievement.
Now let's talk about the lows. What indeed are some of the lows in this journey?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is a client that I lost a couple of years ago. It was a client that was really early in the early stages of me being a social media strategist specifically, like that as my primary offering. He was one of the first clients that I had, and I was really excited about working with him. I remember him saying something to me down the lines of, I'm not choosing to work with you because of what you can do. I'm choosing to work with you because of you. And that was like, oh my God, I just wanted to win for this guy. I wanted to show up. So he lives a little far away from me in another state. So I committed to like driving all the way to his house, filming his content, creating a bunch of videos for him. And then when I returned the projects to him, he wasn't really thrilled with all of the videos. He kind of felt like it wasn't what he was looking for. I think he was looking for more of a broadcast television level quality as opposed to a social media P. Today, I have someone on my staff that's an award-winning filmmaker for my agency, and he helps me. So I have a filmmaker that comes. But I just wish that that client would have stuck around with me, because where I am now, in terms of that part of my business, like the quality of videos that we might create, if that's a solution that a company needs, we're like light years ahead of where I was when I was a one-man operation. And also the fact that he said the reason I am choosing to work with you is because of you. I didn't change. I'm still me. So that kind of always stayed with me. And the last thing I'll say about that relationship is that the client didn't end the business relationship formally. He just ghosted me. And that stung. And honestly, it still bothers me a little bit to this day, but it is something that I use as motivation and fuel, because I know that now I'm an award-winning social media strategist, right? I wasn't an award-winning social media strategist back then. And had he not given me that negative experience, I don't think I would be as motivated as I am to present this level of excellence to the people that I serve, whether it's through my day job or through the clients that are part of my client base.
Okay, so just as you've talked about the highs, you've talked about the lows, I'm sure you've picked a lot of lessons on this journey. So let's spend time with you sharing some of the lessons you've picked up on this journey with us.
Yeah, I want to just make sure I close up on that last story that I shared. I think the biggest lesson that I learned from that experience is that you can control a lot of things in business and in life, but you cannot control people. So even if a person presents themselves as, hey, the reason I'm choosing you is because of you, and they appear to be authentic and real, and you feel like the connection is pure, that you don't know what they're going through. I don't know what he's going through. Maybe that person might have had some kind of issue with ending business relationships. And maybe that's the way they do business, where if I don't want to work with you anymore, I'll just stop responding to your messages. And I remember the final message I sent to the person. It was something down the lines of, hey, I reached out a couple of times, wanted to let you know that it's been an honor working with you, but it appears as if we're not going to do business anymore. Best of luck, or whatever it is. It was something like that. So the lesson there is that no matter how they treat you, how they show up for you, you don't compromise your values as a business person and as a human. I would never end a relationship with a business person, a personal relationship, any kind of relationship with a ghost. I think ghosting is a cowardice act, but I also respect the fact that my definition of cowardice is different than others. And again, I don't know what people are going through. So that was the other lesson, is that no matter how you feel about that interaction with someone, if it's negative, you don't stoop to that level. You remain at your level of integrity and you stick to your values.
All right. So for entrepreneurs overwhelmed by managing digital platforms, right? And what's one small habit or shift that you think can help them reconnect more meaningful with their audience?
There's a lot of things, but this one is something that I've been practicing recently, and it's something that I've been teaching to people. When you show up online, stop showing up like you're trying to get something from people. Start showing up like you're trying to give something to people. Stop trying to take and focus on giving. And what I've found in my personal journey, but also some of the companies that I've worked with, as well as my day job, right? What I find is that when we offer value, when we give out, freely, that the opportunities and the success follows. It might not look the way you want it to look at the speed you want it to look, or the speed you want it to move at, I should say. However, we see the results. And I always tell people to just lead with value. Make sure you're giving first and not asking up front for whatever it is you're trying to get from people.
Lead with value. And these are nuggets from my guest, Robin Nathaniel. Robin, so we find ourselves in this era where everybody is talking about artificial intelligence, AI. But how can we use AI to enhance human connection rather than replacing it?
Yep. I get pegged a lot as a person who's anti-AI. I am not anti-AI. I use artificial intelligence. I've been using it for years, even before the rise of ChatGPT and these large language models. I have Alexa, like the Amazon talking robot in my house. There's a lot of things. Siri, I've been using Siri for years. So there's a lot of AI in my life. I also use large language models to help me brainstorm, even craft some content and edit some content, specifically with, spelling, grammar, things of that nature, and even with structuring my content. So I use it a lot. However, in this era, it's a tool that needs to be used the right way, right? I think because of what we're calling AI sludge, the amount of slop and sludge that is being pushed out, that people are now in a space, Coffee, where they're trying to detect. So it's, instead of us just reading, now we're reading like, is this AI? It's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother level. And I would encourage people, especially if you're trying to build intentional human connection, is to just stop trying to decide whether or not it's AI and just look at it for what it is. Now, if you know it clearly is AI and you have an issue with that, then that's a personal preference. Me, if someone used AI to create a really good piece of content that impacted me, I don't care. It's like me saying, hey, you wrote that by hand versus you typed that in an email. There's still the same message, it's just delivered different ways. And there was somebody creating the initial prompt that created the AI content. So I would give credit to that person for creating the prompt. So for me, I think that's the thing that comes to mind when you ask that question, to just stop trying to be an AI detection system and just be.
Don't be an AI detective. Just be.
Hey, chill. It's like it's okay.
All right. Yeah. So if someone really wants to build this strong connection with their clients, with their family, with their colleagues, um, where should they start from?
I think is leaning into your authenticity. Decide online, whether with family, friends, or clients, whatever profile or whatever stage of your social media journey you're on, is to do a self-assessment and figure out what is it that I'm okay with sharing online. So there was a time in my life where I was not comfortable sharing my children online. I didn't want to share pictures of my kids. I was just concerned about weirdos out there. I just didn't want my kids out there. But what happened over the years is I realized that my daughter is kind of a rock star. She loves to be on camera, and some of the content that we create is enjoyable for both of us. So if there's some weirdo out there capturing kid pictures, I can't control that. Like I said earlier, you can control a lot of things. You can't control how people respond to whatever it is you're working on. But find that level of authenticity within yourself, do a self-assessment, and decide on what is it that I want to share with my audience, whether that's my family, friends, or clients, and then lean into that. Don't try to polish yourself and focus on the highlight films. I feel like people need the right lighting, we need the right camera, we need the right mic. It's okay to just come as your authentic self sometimes, so that way you can cut through the noise and people feel like they're actually talking to their friend on the other side of that camera.
We're just about wrapping up. So, what would be your pieces of advice to my audience?
Yeah, if you're specifically around social media, when creating your content, try to write like you're writing for your best friend. Try to record the video like you're recording the video for your best friend. You want to take it a step beyond? Think about it like your closest loved one, right? Imagine a company that offered you a service, and when you call them, you felt like you were talking to your best friend. There's power in that. And I would encourage everyone listening, when you leave this podcast and you start to go work on whatever it is on social media or just in your digital communication, whether that's email list, newsletter, start writing like you're writing to your best friend.
All right. So before I sign off, what will be your last words to my audience before I sign off?
Don't overthink this. It doesn't need to be something that you plan for 6 months for a big launch. It's something you can start today. Whatever your mission is, whatever it is that you're working on, and whoever it is that you need to serve, you not taking the extra step to take advantage of these billions of people who are online, in a way, is selfish to the people you serve. So I would strongly encourage you to maximize your reach and start today. Don't overthink it.
Right. So thank you, Robin Nathaniel, for sharing your rich experience with us today on the Entrepreneur Speaks podcast. We wish you the very best.
Thank you.
So this has been another exciting episode of the Entrepreneur Speaks podcast. I'll come your way next time with another inspiring episode. I remain your host, Kofi Animedu. As always, do take good care of yourself, and let's continue to keep hope alive. Cheers. All right.